Hello everyone. So in this video, I'm going to be covering the 5 JavaScript array methods that you need to know as a coding beginner. Now arrays, like this is an object that you are going to be working with a lot as a developer, no matter what programming language really. So these methods that I'm going to cover in this video, these are the most common methods that you're going to find yourself using a lot when it comes to working with arrays. So if you are a coding beginner, I would advise that you follow along with me in this video because I'm going to be using different examples to show you how these methods work. All right, and you can follow along by going to this website called jsbin.com. That's jsbin.com. That's where I'm going to be writing the code from, and you can actually type along with me as well. All right, and if you don't know, my name is TJ. I'm a self-taught software engineer that helps beginners like yourself learn to code and get started on their coding journey. So looking forward to you following along in this tutorial, and make sure you check the description for extra resources that can help you to get started on your coding journey. All right, so in this video, I'm going to be covering 5 of the most common JavaScript array methods that you have to know if you want to learn to code and become a software developer. All right, so this is JavaScript specific. All right, now keep in mind, I am not going to be covering any methods that you use to loop through an array, like for each or filter or map, right? Like those are not the type of methods that I'm going to be covering in this video. The methods I'm covering in this video are methods that, that you use to essentially perform an action, like, that help you perform a direct action on an array and return a value to you specifically without you writing code to loop through. All right, so let's get started. The first JavaScript array method that you have to know is includes, right? Does this array include whatever I'm searching for? Right, like that is a very common method that you're going to be using a lot as a developer, right? So if I open up a new tab, I go to JavaScript array includes, and I click on the W3 Schools link. I like to, use that because they have this description, syntax, breakdown, parameter, return value, so it just kind of shows you all the information you need to quickly understand how a method works, right? So how does the includes method work? The includes method returns true if an array contains a specified value, right? Essentially what you're searching for. And syntax, syntax tells you how to use the method, right? It shows you here that you need to have an array, right? You call the includes method on an array, and you could pass in 2 parameters. The first parameter is required. The second one is optional. 99.9% of the time that you use the includes method, you're only going to be passing in 1 parameter. All right. And that is the value to search for, right? And the return value is a Boolean, right? True or false, yes or no. Does it include this thing, right? So let me go to my example here, right? So let's say that I try to console log whether my example array includes the word code. This should return true. Awesome, right? Like it works. If I make this C capital, do you think it's still going to return true? If I hit run, it returns false. Because remember what we read here? The includes method is case sensitive. So keep that in mind when you're using this method. All right. If you don't want your code to be case sensitive, you can make it case insensitive, right? And essentially all you have to do is just, you can like lowercase this or just, loop through this array and make sure everything is lowercase. So anytime that you're calling the includes method, you also have to lowercase the actual value that you're searching for. So everything has to be the same case. That's how you make it case insensitive, right? Because everything is the same case. All right. So that is the includes method. The second JavaScript array method that you have to know is the slice method, right? The array slice method. So let me look that up here. Actually, that should already be here in the S, right? So if I go here, slice, the JavaScript array slice method returns the selected elements in an array as a new array. So keep in mind, this method returns a new array, all right? Method selects from a given start up to but not inclusive given, and this is kind of weird phrasing, but I'll explain that later. But essentially, let's look at the syntax, right? This is how the slice method works. So you call slice on an array and you tell it where to start slicing from, right? So basically, if you have an array with multiple items in it and you want to return a small, only part of that array, you can slice the part that you want out of it. You get what I'm saying? So, you have to start, which is optional, but the default is always going to be 0, right? Where we want to start slicing from the first item in the array. And you also put the end position. Default is let me just walk you through an example, right? So I have my example array here with 3 items in it, right? It has 3 items. Remember, when you're counting in programming, right, the positions, the index of an array is 0 base index. That means the first item is at position 0. All right, so this learn is at position 0. This 2 is at position 1, and this is at position 2. All right, so let me delete this old code here and let me do slice. So I want to start, let's say that I start slicing from 0 to 1, right? Let's just do, something straightforward and see how that works, right? So it basically takes the first item, right? It starts slicing and it stops at index 1. This is index 1. This 2 is index 1. Remember, it doesn't include it because it goes up to it, but it doesn't include it. Remember, I was like, oh, this is weird phrasing. You see here, select from a given start up to, not inclusive of the end, right? So, you are telling it where to stop slicing. Like, stop at this index, but don't include this index. All right. So here, if I change this to 2, right? This is index 2. This is index 2. The word code is at index 2. So this slice method, it should slice these first 2 items, but it doesn't include this last one, right? So if I hit run, you see that? And that's how that works, right? So if I change this 0 to 1, right, that means that it is going to start slicing at 2, and it's not going to include learn, right? If I hit run, boom. It doesn't include code either, because remember, it goes up to index 2, but it doesn't include the ending index. That's how the slice method works, all right? So remember, this is a method that you're going to run across and use a lot as an engineer. So definitely make sure that this is like simple, or sorry, this isn't simple, but it's like pretty straightforward. Make sure that you understand it to where you understand how to use it and you understand how it works. All right. So let's move on to the third JavaScript method that you have to know, the third JavaScript array method that you have to know, and that is the push method. So the push method is essentially how you can add an item to an array, right? So let's go look that up, right? We can just find that here on the side. So you click push, right? You use the push method to add a new item to an array. The push method adds a new item to the end of an array. Now, keep in mind, it adds it to the end of an array, which changes the length of the array. So essentially, it modifies the array by adding a new item to it. So this is the syntax. So you can call array.push and you pass whatever items that you want to add, but a minimum of 1 item is required, right? And the return value a number, which is the new length of the array. So let's see how this works. So I have my array, I'm going to call dot length on this right now, just so that we kind of see. The length is 3, right? It has 3 items in it. 1, 2, 3. Don't get that confused with the index position. Length and index are different, all right? To find the index of something using the length, you just always subtract 1. Because remember, index starts counting at 0. Length starts counting at 1. All right, so the current length of the array is 3. It has 3 items in it. 1, 2, 3, boom. If I call push and I add another item to it, learn to code now. Learn to code now, right? Remember, the return value of that of push is the length, right? A number, the new length of the array. So let's say that I console log this afterwards. I'm just gonna console log my example array. You see, learn to code now, right? Like that is now included in it, and as you can see, it has 4 items in it, right? So that's the push method. Now the next method is the pop, right? So the 4th JavaScript array method that you have to know is the pop method. So pop does what? If we go here, pop removes the last element in an array, right? So this is the syntax. All you do is you just call dot pop. You don't pass anything into it. You just call dot pop. And the return value is a variable. It returns the removed item, whether that's a string and a number, whatever, right? So let's say, all right, so I call, oh yeah, this would be interesting. Let me do it like this, right? So I'm gonna call dot pop. So watch what I'm doing here, right? So this is my example array. And the first thing that I do is that I add another item now. I add now into this array, right? You see here, I'm doing this. I'm adding now here. And then I console log that. That's why that array is showing. But now I'm going to call pop. So pop is going to remove the now. And so it's going to go back to the original, right? So I'm going to hit clear and run. And if I was to console log this out after I call pop on it, let me hit clear and run. You see? So basically, push adds an item to the array and returns the length, right? That's why we have 4. And then when I console log the array, you see that the array's been modified. It now has 4 items in it. But then I call .pop. So pop, remember, pop removes the last item from an array and it returns that item, right? The return value of calling .pop is the item that was returned, which is why we have now here. So now, maybe I shouldn't use now because I'm using now in my sentence. But now that I call console.log and I'm console logging this example array, you see that that word is not in the array anymore like it was up here. You get what I'm saying? So here, if I deleted this code, right? If I just pop, this is gonna remove the word code. So if I hit run, right? This first console log is showing me that when I call pop, it removed this word code. And then when I call console log again and I'm logging to the console, my example array here, you see that the array doesn't include that word code anymore, right? Because if I put a console log here before I call pop, right, like code is there, then I call pop and I log that variable again, code is not there. All right, so that's how pop works. It seems pretty straightforward, but trust me, this is going to be a method that you find yourself using a lot as a JavaScript developer. All right, so another one that does something similar, shift. So basically the 5th JavaScript array method that you have to know is a method called shift. So let's go to shift. Whenever I say shift, I think of Shiv from that show Succession. Hopefully some of y'all watch that show because that's a good show. So I think Shiv, but shift, right? So shift removes the first element of an array, right? Like the shift method removes the first item of an array, so yeah, it changes the original array and it returns just like pop did, right? It returns the shifted element, right? And this is this is the syntax. You just call it, you don't pass anything into it. The return value is the remove item. So it basically works like pop does, but pop works removes the last item. Shift removes the first item, right? So if we go here, we just change this to shift and we hit run, right? So you see, when we first console log, we have our array that has these 3 items in it. Then when we call shift, you see it removes learn. When we console log our example array again, we see that learn is not in that array anymore. All right, that's it. Includes, slice, push, pop, and shift. Like those are the 5, really most common JavaScript array methods that you're going to find yourself using a lot. Now, keep in mind, these are not methods that you use to loop through an array and do something. They just kind of perform a quick action. All right, so that's it. If you are learning to code and you want to start learning to code and just get more practice problems, practice projects, check the description below. I have a lot of resources there to help you to start learning to code and just start learning more about JavaScript and how to build basic websites overall. All right, and comment below if you found this video helpful as well. Thank you.